This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
Hello, hello.
How do, everyone? Hello, Bryan.
Howdy.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Dream Idiots.
Yes, indeed. It's beginning to look a lot like Dream Idiots. It's getting to be that time.
Yes, happy post coma Thanksgiving. For those of you who are tryptophan out, we are in the throes of the last days of November here as we careen into December. And we've got some great stuff lined up for you here in the last month of the year. Bryan, you wanna tell them where they can check us out if they want to go online and poke around for some idiotic stuff?
Absolutely. Feel free to check us out, dreamidiots.com. We're now on every single podcast platform there is. So if you're listening to us, please like and share and subscribe and give us 5 stars on whatever app you're listening to, and feel free to shoot us a review as well. That'd be hugely helpful. For some reason those 5-star ratings help bump us up the charts, and so that would be hugely appreciated. We do also have some merchandise. I posted the Clear Eyes Full Hearts Fuck Ted Cruz t-shirt online and got a few different online political forums and got a lot of feedback that people think it's pretty funny. So buy some stuff and share our stuff.
Cool. We take turns going first. Each week we tell each other and you stories from our lives, history, things we find interesting. And I get to go first, and I'm going to try to close out my multi-parter on the American Indian movement today. So I'll get things started with part 3, AIM. And Bryan, if you recall, last time we left in the late 60s, when the so-called city Indians, as they were called by traditional folks living on the reservation, started to form the American Indian movement out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. These were the people whose childhood, language, religion, and land had been taken from them in exchange for living in boarding schools run by the government and life in the city as part of what was called the Termination Program. The Bureau of Indian Affairs continued to act in the interest of the government rather than that of the people. And nowhere is this better and more horrifically seen than on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. We talked a little bit about this last time with the murders of Wesley Badheart Bull and Raymond Yellow Thunder. So if you haven't gone back and listened to part 1 and 2, unless you're the kind of person that likes to listen to things out of order, go back and listen to parts 1 and 2, episodes 44 and 45. Let's talk a little bit about Dick Wilson. During the early 1970s, and I mentioned this briefly, Pine Ridge Reservation was the poorest reservation in the United States. And as one person put it, it was drenched in fear, anxiety, and tension. And that comes out of the excellent documentary by Michael Apted called Incident at Oglala. In 1972, the tribal president was a BIA stooge, that's the only way to put it, named Dick Wilson, who liked to sort out problems, quote, with a bullet. He used his position as tribal president to enrich himself, his family, and a circle of cronies. I believe he tripled his own salary per year when he took office as tribal president. The BIA gave Wilson $62,000 to create what he called an auxiliary police force. This force was called by Pine residents the Goon Squad, a name which Wilson promptly took and subverted and said, yeah, it's the Goon Squad. It stands for Guardians of the Oglala Nation, GOON. He used the squad and his position to harass AIM members and their supporters to the point where AIM was called by a lot of the folks on the reservation called in to help, where AIM would come in, help people get sober, help people stay off alcohol and drugs, help them build gardens, do a lot of community work. But you can look at Churchill and Vanderwall, and Ward Churchill, I don't get the sense is really well liked by a lot of AIM folks, but he did write a book along with James Vanderwall called Agents of Repression, for a host of stories and some of the stuff that Wilson and his group did on the reservation. But During Wilson's tenure at Pine Ridge, there were multiple incidents of cars being shot at, destruction of property, and most horrible of all, over 60 unsolved murders of AIM members and traditionalists. The FBI refuted some of this and said actually it was just 4. It still seems like 4 too many on a reservation, but referring to Michael Apted's incident at Oglala, from March 1st of 73 to March 1st of 76, Pine Ridge had 56.7 murders per 100,000, while Detroit, which was called, I believe, the murder capital of the United States then,
Right.
had 20.2 murders per 100,000. In 1974, the average in the entire U.S., so we're looking at 56.7 for Pine Ridge, 20.2 for Detroit. The average in the United States, 9.7 per 100,000. Unbelievable. And it was one resident of the reservation put it, you had just assumed, quote, assumed strangers were going up there to kill you. Horrible way to live. In addition to the lack of proper facilities, just this fright of living there, and this idea that when you saw strangers, there was a better than even chance that they were coming up there to do you harm. The occupation of Wounded Knee is what I'd like to talk about next. From February 27th to May 8th of 1973, AIM and its supporters began an occupation of the town of Wounded Knee. And this was chosen as a deliberate site because of its historical context of the relationship between the government and the people. And they took it over in protest of the failed impeachment of Dick Wilson. This was a 71-day standoff. And basically it was done in protest because Dick Wilson, they tried to impeach him and get kicked out as tribal president. It didn't work. And when it was all said and done, and from some of the testimony from the people who were involved in this, they said it was perfectly fine the way that AIM members were treating the people of the town that they occupied. But when it was all said and done, a local Lakota man was killed. A Cherokee man who was visiting in Solidarity was killed. And in early days, a U.S. Marshal was paralyzed from the waist down owing to a gunshot injury. And a Black civil rights supporter who'd showed up in Solidarity went missing over the course of the 71 days. It has been alleged over the years that this particular civil rights worker was actually killed by AIM members because of a disinformation campaign, which painted him as an FBI informant. Now, I don't know who would benefit from doing that. Probably Dick Wilson, who knows. This man was, I believe his remains were eventually found somewhere on the reservation, but he did go missing, and he was missing for almost, I want to say 40 years. This incident garnered a lot of national attention, the most famous of which, do you know the name Sasheen Littlefeather? It's probably tickling the recesses of your brain.
That rings a bell. Is that the person that went on stage to accept the Academy Award for Marlon Brando? No.
Yes, she is. She appeared at the 45th Annual Academy.
Well done, why the hell I know that? I don't know.
Appearance at the 45th Annual Academy Awards. She accepted Best Actor Award on behalf of Marlon Brando. And of course, this caused a big uproar. Some people were applauding because she was doing it, she said, because Brando was protesting the treatment of Native Americans. A lot of other celebrities and well-known folks, Dick Gregory, Jane Fonda, other people who were involved this garnered a lot of attention.
And she was hustled off, as I recall, too.
Wasn't she hustled off? That there's a rumor that John Wayne was going to try to take her off stage himself. And when she died earlier this year, she died in 2022. Littlefeather's family said, because this has already been a bone of contention, that she actually had no Native American blood. Her birth name was Marie Louise Cruz, but she maintained until the day she died that she had White Mountain Apache blood. I don't know what the case of that is, but
and it hardly on some level it hardly matters, right? I mean, her point is still completely valid. Right.
Yeah, yes, it is. And Clint Eastwood had something to say about, I hope I can accept this award on behalf of all the cowboys killed in John Ford films. And I think the best thing that was probably said was by Michael Caine, who was the host that year, who's had something to say. He said, the real coward here is Marlon Brando. He shouldn't have put this young lady up on stage by herself. He should have come and done this himself, which is an excellent point, I think.
Right.
Make this person stand up and take
Oh, he
take
he
this.
wasn't even there. Was he there?
No,
But
no, he
not,
wasn't here. No, he
he
stayed.
wasn't
He
even
was
he
somewhere
wasn't in the
else.
building.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
that's
He said
ridiculous. Okay.
he was off doing something else. Um, but that is just an example of the kind of public response we had to this. Now, some people in the audience were obviously supportive of what she was doing. But as a result of this, Russell Means, I talked about him last time, and Dennis Banks, you met Dennis Banks last time as well. They were both AIM leaders. They were indicted for this occupation, but in 1974, their charges were dismissed for prosecutorial misconduct.
Okay.
Russell Means and Dick Wilson faced off later in 1974 in an election for tribal president, and Wilson won yet again with the blessing and support of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So it just continues, right? Then we come to 1975, and here's what everybody knows about Pine Ridge Reservation. And again, I'm taking the 30,000-foot view. I'm going to give you a list of sources that if people want to look more into this, that's what I would like you to do. I don't want to take away all of the, I don't want to say it's fun, but I don't want to take away all of the information because I want people to seek out these sources, these documentaries, these books,
Right. Sure.
and read for themselves. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview about the shootout at Pine Ridge. So the tensions and fear of life at Pine Ridge ended in this tragedy on June 26, 1975. Two FBI agents who were driving two separate cars had been following a man named Jimmy Eagle, who had been accused of stealing a pair of boots, a pair of work boots that may have been taken in an altercation that could constitute assault. Eagle was driving a red pickup truck down the highway, and the two agents were following him. So we've got a pickup truck and two basic cop cars, right? Undercover cop cars that
Right.
FBI agents might drive.
Basic sedans, right?
Right, driving down the highway. And then Jimmy Eagle turned onto Jumping Bull Ranch, which was on the Pine Ridge Reservation. The agents followed him. Keep in mind what I said earlier. If you see strangers, you assume that they're on there to kill you. So here come these two sedans. And then what happened over the next few minutes is the biggest mystery for many people in the history of the American Indian movement. At some point, shots were exchanged between federal agents and members of AIM. When the gunfire ended, both agents were dead, having been shot at a distance in their bodies. One was shot in the hand and execution style in the face, just bam, right in the face. AIM member Joe Stunts had been killed at a distance by police who responded to all the gunfire. His bullet was taken dead center, almost dead center in the forehead, according to Dino Butler, who was an AIM member standing next to him when he took the bullet. Again, assume strangers are going up to kill you. The agents are found near their cars, shot, as I said, both in the body and at close range through the head. Someone had allegedly taken apart the agents' cars and stolen 4 weapons belonging to the agents, both of their handguns, a rifle, and a shotgun. Okay? That's it. That's what happened. So 3 AIM members are ultimately arrested. The aforementioned Dino Butler, Robert Robodue, and Leonard Peltier. Dino Butler wasn't arrested until September 5th, 1975. He had on him one of the handguns and ammunition, which were both found in the vicinity in a car near where he was. Okay, so that's how he was arrested. September 10th, Robert Robodue was arrested after the station wagon he was riding in with 2 other AIM members suffered an explosion. An explosion because ammunition went off. And in the wreckage, the missing FBI rifle was found along with another AR-15. Okay, so now we've got two of the guns accounted for.
Right.
The car had been purchased the day before by the 3rd suspect, Leonard Peltier. So where's Leonard? Well, Leonard had also bought an RV, which was stopped in Oregon by a state trooper. The driver of the RV left the scene after a brief shootout, but left behind the other handgun that was missing. I'm not sure the shotgun was ever found. He also left behind a thumbprint, which positively identified him as Leonard Peltier. He fled to Canada, where he made out quite well until February of 1976, when he was arrested by the RCMP. He said that he would not get a fair trial in the U.S. That's why he fled to Canada. He was ultimately extradited to the U.S. in December of 76. By the time he got back, Robodue and Butler's trial was already underway. And in 1976, at a federal trial in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Robodue and Butler were found not guilty of first-degree murder by reasons of self-defense. That They didn't know who was shooting at them. There's this shooting going on. They see strangers on this property that's a federal reservation. They shoot. People are shooting back and forth. It's a mess. No one knows what's happening. There's this tension, this climate of fear on this reservation. These guys end up dead, and it is horrible because I believe they both left behind families. But again, you have to assume that strangers are there to do you harm. So these guys get off. Peltier was there too late to be a part of this, so he had to have a separate trial. His trial was held in Fargo, North Dakota. He was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in prison. Testimony that was not allowed in Robodue and Butler's trial was allowed in Peltier's, such as photographs of the dead agents and the information that they had been killed at close range.
Wow.
So he's found guilty and goes to jail. He escapes from prison for a while, but then is recaptured in 1979. But he has been in jail ever since, and I'll tell you where he is in a moment. A lot of folks have pointed out problems with the case and the evidence against Leonard. One, and I'll just hit 5 of these real quick. One, bullet casings at the scene could not be tied to Peltier's weapons he was found with. The firing pins did not match. 3 important witnesses to the prosecution who filed affidavits all later recanted their testimony. They claimed they had to sign these affidavits under duress and threats of violence by the FBI. One witness had a history of mental illness, and previous false statements had claimed to be Peltier's girlfriend when in fact they had never met. Peltier provided an alibi timeline that he had been in Ogallala repairing a car early that morning and returned to Jumping Bull Ranch about an hour before the incident. He headed to the camping area, tent area, where he'd been taking a nap when the shooting started. And there were people who said, yeah, he was there. He was down there when it started. This is the part that gets me. The FBI, remember, had been following Jimmy Eagle. And what was he driving, Brian? Do you remember? A red what?
A red truck, wasn't it?
A red pickup truck.
Right.
On the highway. And then you follow him on a Jumping Bull Ranch. Somehow this solid red pickup truck said, oh, Peltier has that exact same. He has a pickup truck. Peltier drove an orange and white Suburban. But somehow that is the same thing as, and then in the document, at the documentary in Ogallala, these guys are arguing, well, when you say truck, you can mean any number of things. And I look at a truck and I say, no, a truck has to have an open bed. A Suburban is not a pickup truck.
No,
I mean, that's like looking at my Subaru Forest and saying that's a truck. That's not a truck.
No.
Okay. And it was a solid red, not an orange and white. And then finally, in 1989, my final point, and this one is highly contested, but it is interesting. An individual dubbed Mr. X stepped forward and claimed responsibility for the deaths of the 2 federal agents. Peltier has refused to name this person out of his personal code of not betraying information taken in confidence. And existence of Mr. X remains just a highly debated issue in this case. A couple folks have said, no, Peltier has talked openly about his killing of the agents. I don't know what to make of it. I do think that he is serving a sentence that he should not be serving. I think he's been in jail a long, long time. He is 78 years old. And I think when you have this idea of 2 agents who were on this land and should not have been there in the first place, when these folks are living in a constant climate of fear because of the Goon Squad and because of what Dick Wilson's administration put them through as this, quite frankly, illegitimate tribal president.
Right, sure.
Mr. Peltier should have been out of prison a long time ago. He should have never gone in I shouldn't have been in there in the first place, in my opinion. He currently resides as an inmate in Coleman Federal Correctional Complex in Coleman, Florida. And as a way to kind of wrap this up, I've tried to talk about the way that the laws and conditions and history of this country have led to the loss of religion, land, the way that children were taken and put into boarding schools. Just last week, I received my latest issue of The Nation. The November 28th, December 5th, 2022 issue of The Nation has an article entitled "The Case of Baby O." And in 1978, a federal law was passed called the Indian Child Welfare Act, or the ICWA. And this law sought to prevent family separation in Native societies. This law is now at the center of a complex case before the Supreme Court. Holland versus Brackeen. Haaland versus Brackeen, where there is an attempt to redefine tribal identity as racial instead of political. There are some adoption families basically bringing this suit, claiming the ICWA discriminates against them because they are non-native.
Okay.
So you have at this heart a white family who's trying to adopt, saying that having this in place prevents their white family from adopting a native child. And it is discriminating against white families. And this one white family they follow has adopted this native child, but they are continuing as part of this suit. And they are neither party in this suit. They're a totally different family. So now we have a group of people trying to undo this Child Welfare Act, which has been a touchstone of keeping Native families together for over 40 years. This case is covered in season 2 of the podcast This Land from Crooked Media. I've not listened to it yet. I just haven't had time. And I just read this article yesterday.
Okay, wow.
And I added to it at the last minute. Sources for this episode, aimmovement.org, the AIM website, which has a lot of information, a lot of paths you can go down. Dennis Banks with Richard Erdos from 2004. Ojibwe Warrior, Dennis Banks and the Rise of the American Indian Movement from University of Oklahoma Press. Gene Chavers, June 22nd, 2009, Around the Campfire in Memory of Raymond Yellow Thunder, the Native Times, which is an online article. Ward Churchill and Jim Vanderwall, he's the fellow that AIM doesn't think too highly of, Ward Churchill. 1990, Agents of Repression, the FBI's Secret War Against the Black Panther Party and the American Indian Movement, Black Classic Press. Peter Mathiason's 1992 book, In the Spirit of Crazy Horse from Penguin. The article I just mentioned, Rebecca Nagel, she's also the host, I believe, of the podcast This Land. 2022 article, The Case of Baby O from The Nation. Leonard Peltier, United States prisoner number 89637-132, 1999. Prison Writings, My Life is My Sundance, edited by Harvey Arden from St. Martin's Press, New York. Incident in Oglala, 1992, film by Michael Apted, the director, Miramax/Artisan filmmakers. And Russell Means, Lakota Warrior, a lecture from 2012, directed by Leslie Abbey from Film Hubs and Snowflake Video Productions. That is available on Amazon Prime for 99 cents. Well worth your time to listen to Mr. Means speak. And Wikipedia for basic dates and information such as that. So their bare bones, such as it is, a brief history of some of the things that have gone on with the American Indian movement. You can support AIM. You can support AIM by picking up, buying books through them, videos, t-shirts, flags, and support them that way if you wish. Sorry, Bryan, go ahead.
I mean, if they just need to understand that they're second-class citizens. I mean, what's the problem?
I tell you, when I was working for the census 2 years ago, and I was in some neighborhoods, and I had to go up to houses with AIM flags as a government worker.
Right.
Man, did that talk about
and
humbling
how
experience.
How common was that when you were doing that?
In this neighborhood, it was every house. This was a heavy. I mean, that was very uncommon. But for that day, it was just about every house on this one block.
Right.
I mean, it was just the kind of thing where it was like, how do I even broach this topic of, hi, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you with the United States. I mean, it's
Right. Sure.
ridiculous.
Yeah. One thing in the story that I still don't quite understand. I've spent a fair amount of time in the Southwest, and gone on a bunch of, different pueblos, reservations, etc. And I don't claim to have more than a passing understanding about how law enforcement and jurisdictions are supposed to work there. So that's my my introduction to this. But those two officers followed this red truck, and then they pulled off the highway onto land that is outside their jurisdiction. My understanding is that if you're a a low level cop with the Albuquerque PD or the Denver PD in 2022, you can't then wander off into any of the pueblos, reservations, etc., in New Mexico or Colorado and do anything. You are a private citizen at that point. So why these two assholes would follow this guy, pull off the road, and then why would anything have taken place? You are no longer an FBI officer. You are a human being and nothing more. You are outside your jurisdiction. Am I wrong?
I think that's everybody's main argument in the first place, is that they were someplace they shouldn't have been.
Right. Okay.
Now, I think you can make an argument that a federal agent on this kind of land probably has more jurisdiction than your average Joe.
Than a local PD, right? Maybe.
But in this case, again, I feel horrible for these guys, but they shouldn't have been there. I mean, they should not have been there. And if it was just a matter of them not knowing that, man, this is a bad situation up on Pine Ridge, and it has been for years. I mean,
yes. Well,
someone
go ahead.
Someone said made the comment that they must have been new because they should have known better than to go there in the first place, right? And I don't know the extent to which they were new, but geez, man, that's a rough first week at work to go into that. And I've seen other documentaries that I could not track down. I remember seeing a documentary a good 15 years ago or so, and they interviewed the survivors from his family, and it's utterly tragic. I mean,
right, sure,
the guys' widows and their kids, and they have a completely different take on what happened that day. Of course they are. Of course they're going to. I can't help but think that if you hadn't had the situation in the first place where the BIA hadn't sponsored Dick Wilson, and you'd had somebody better in place that the people of the reservation actually wanted leading them, you wouldn't have had these conditions that would have led to this
right
in the very first place. And then you could take it back further than that. Well, if we hadn't have everybody crammed on the reservations the way they are, treated as second-class citizens, like you said, going all the way back. I mean, you could keep pulling at the thread all the way back through history to the first blanket, back to the very first blanket. So
right.
Anyway.
Yeah, back to we talked about Squanto and all that last week. Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, exactly. And this just further reinforces my now long held belief perspective that anyone, even if you're with the FBI, anyone that works in law enforcement, they're just looking for a fight. These guys are not, this whole protect and serve thing is a concept that's, it's painted on the sides of cars and is their slogan on websites, but there is a wildly disproportionate number of folks that are in law enforcement because they, quote, want to serve, unquote, who are there looking to kick some ass every single day of their life. And this just, instills that even more so. Find someone who doesn't have white skin, who I can beat or hopefully kill.
I'm finding it harder and harder to disagree with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, Tamir Rice, Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, just you go on the list of cops that have brutalized people for no good reason.
Oh, and there are some. I mentioned some.
Rodney King.
There are some plenty of great podcasts out there, and if you're listening to this on the day it drops in November, being Heritage Month, there are plenty of recommended podcasts out there done by performed written, hosted by Native Americans. Check them out. There's one called Leonard that is all about Leonard Peltier. They're out there, and pick up that latest issue of The Nation for that Case of Baby O article that just came out last week.
Sweet.
There we go.
Awesome. Thanks. Great story. Devastating story, but definitely a story people need to know.
And it's not going away. Thank you, sir. Let's lighten it up with some cussing.
All right, here we go.
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
Okay, so let's see if you've ever heard this term before. Ever heard of the groom of the stool? That evil laugh tells me you have.
I have not, but there's so many gross ways you could go with this that it's just the groom of the stool.
The groom of the stool was an official title held by a person, a series of people. It's sort of like, well, I won't give a comparison. It is a formal title given to a certain individual.
So, okay, groom, I mean, I'm guessing you could go like the stable hand way, a stool that you use to climb on top of something, somebody who's in charge of a chamber pot. I mean, there are just so many ways you could go that are just vile and nasty. So,
well, your last guess was closest to correct. The groom of the stool was a male servant that was always in the household of the English monarch, starting in, I believe, in the 15th century. And according to Wikipedia, was responsible for assisting the king in his toileting needs. So this is a person that was, it's disputed whether or not they actually did the wiping or not, but this is someone who is,
oh dear God,
like maybe who may just have been in the bathroom, at the time and supplying towels or water or whatever the monarch needs. It's probably the case any reasonable, sane human being wouldn't want to have someone else actually do the wiping, but you never know. But the groom of the stool also, so handled the cleanliness aspect, at least oversaw it, but also sort of monitor the monarch's diet and would keep track of bowel movements and would actually talk to the royal doctor about the monarch's health. But the weird thing about this role is that it was a highly coveted and respected role. At least one groom of the stool was a groom of the stool for Henry VIII, who had 4 manors, was incredibly well paid, was obviously not nobility, but nobility adjacent, and had the ear of the king, was in his private circles. So
wait, if he's got the ear of the king, he's doing it wrong, Brian. Right. That's not the proper orifice we're dealing with, Brian.
You're not following instructions. So the groom of the stool, but as you can be probably aware of, that later on there have been monarchs of England and Great Britain that were not men. There was a Queen Mary, there's Elizabeth I, there's Queen Victoria. So when Elizabeth I of England came onto the crown in 1558, there was not a groom of the stool. There was someone else that was appointed to a similar role. A woman named
the stool.
A woman named Cat Ashley was named First Lady of the Bedchamber. So, okay. So she was, similar role, but again, a highly sought after and frankly respected role. And then this was something that it went into abeyance occasionally, but Queen Victoria didn't want it, but her husband, Prince Albert, had someone in a similar role, and their son Edward, the Prince of Wales, had a courtier that kind of filled that role as well. And then someone actually held this role until King Edward VII in 1901. So this is hundreds of years, 500 years.
And King Charles is just bringing it back.
Yes, something tells me that this is something that Camilla has to do. I don't know why I think that, but it just feels true. So,
darling, smell this for me, would you? So that scene in History of the World, Mel Brooks' History of the World, where he calls for the royal piss bucket and the piss boy, that was a real thing then. Someone
that
who
was
would attend to
that was
partially
fairly
based.
right. So it's it's unclear whether they actually wiped or whether they just took a bucket of water and just threw it at him, But there you go.
Wow.
The groom of the stool.
Okay. Well,
Here we are, Dream Idiots, educating, planting seeds,
oh, Bryan, that's
making
so
you smarter
gross.
each week. So I think, okay, there you go. Anyway, so next week's story is going to be a story about a person who, not unlike your three-parter, is a person who is taken advantage of for bad reasons, and so that was just too heavy to dive into this week. And so, what I wanted to talk about instead this week was drinks that have been made famous in movies and in TV. There's one very, very famous one, which you will certainly recognize, and we will come to. I'm going to go down a list of drinks, and you get to guess the movie that they're made famous in.
Oh,
Some of
Lord.
these,
okay.
Some of these you'll know, some of these you may not know. But this seemed like a lighter, stupid, more frivolous use of time than a second heavy story about racism. So here we go. Made famous, made well. These are all drinks that existed prior to these movies coming out, but these are drinks that then whose popularity was enhanced by the fact that they were featured very prominently in this movie. The White Russian, which is a drink I absolutely abhor.
Well, that was in Big Lebowski. Was
absolutely. He has 5 or 6 of them. Vodka heavy cream.
He stirs them with his finger too.
Yes, like a good alcoholic. But yeah, vodka heavy cream and coffee liqueur. I actually have a bottle of Kahlua in my house right now that I was given 3 years ago, and it's unopened. I should probably regift it.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
So, probably, absolutely the most famous one, the Vodka Martini.
Dr. No.
Yeah, I mean, all of the James
Bond
movies.
Any James Bond movie?
Really, there's a couple different variations on it. The whole controversy about the Vodka Martini being shaken, not stirred, is a little bit peculiar because for a very short time in San Antonio, when we were in college, I was a bartender and I was terrible at it. But I knew enough about making martinis that apparently shaking vodka bruises vodka, and a well-made martini, it's actually stirred, not shaken. But we're just splitting hairs here. But apparently, through all of the canon of Ian Fleming's work, he's very particular about the drinks that are served. And so, in one of them, I think Casino Royale, he specifies that the proper vodka martini is 6 parts vodka, 1 part vermouth, and another one he just stipulates that it's very, very dry, but doesn't really go into it. So along similar lines, the Vesper.
That comes from that's also a Bond thing, right? Which is that's one of the lady friends of James Bond, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Vesper cocktail is another one. Yeah, it's apparently it's in the book Casino Royale. And then so the Vesper is actually 3 measures of Gordon's gin, 1 of vodka, and then a half measure of something called Quina Lillet, which is a wine that's no longer made. Apparently you can actually order this, though. They replace the Quina Lillet with Lillet Blanc. And there are a couple different versions of it, also with bitters. But yes, again, that's the slight derivation of the vodka martini that James Bond orders over and over and over again. So next one, the Orange Whip, which I'd never even heard of before.
Orange Whip,
Yeah.
Orange Whips, Blues Brothers, right?
Yeah. Yep. Orange Whip is a cocktail with it's OJ cream, rum, and vodka.
Oh, so it's like a creamsicle kind of. Okay.
Yeah. Occasionally can actually have egg white as well.
Oh God! Oh,
I'm like, oof, yeah, no
oh.
thanks. The red eye.
I don't know.
Red eye became more popular after a terrible movie featuring Tom Cruise. Cocktail.
Oh,
Ugh. Yeah, awful.
yeah.
I think I saw that atrocity in the theater. So red eye is Bloody Mary mix, vodka, and again a raw egg. No thanks.
Oh, okay.
And then the whole mixture is topped off with a cold beer. Oof, yeah.
Oh, wait. We'll make it worse. Okay.
Right. So there you go. The red eye. Yeah. Next one is the Gibson.
The Gibson, I remember Cary Grant drank Gibsons. That's the one that's made with a pearl onion instead of. Is that right? Is that a Gibson? No, that's a gimlet. What is a
No,
Gibson?
you're right.
Oh, it is. It's pearl onion instead of. It's a martini with a pearl onion instead of an olive, I think.
Yeah, and you're right about Cary Grant because it is featured in North by Northwest.
Okay, yeah. It's what he orders with Eve Marie Saint when they're on the train. I'll have a Gibson. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. God, you're good at this. So the next one is the
Well,
Cosmo.
Bryan, I am an alcoholic. So
The Cosmopolitan.
the Cosmopolitan. I mean, wasn't it associated with not 6 Feet Under? What's that show about chicks in New York?
Yeah, Sex in the City.
Sex in the City, is that it?
Chicks
Sex in the City, 6 Feet Under.
Same thing.
6 Feet Under, Six in the City. I get them.
Those shows are frequently confused. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a bit of a girly drink, and it definitely has it's high in alcohol.
It's up there with a zombie, right? It's just made of or Long Island iced tea. It's just monster strength.
Cointreau vodka, cran, a little lime. Next one is a drink I never even heard of before. The French 75.
I'm just gonna guess swingers, but I don't know. No, I've never heard of that one.
Casablanca. So the French 75 is it says it's a well-known champagne cocktail, but it's lemon juice, mulled sugar, and then cognac, and then topped with champagne. Actually, it doesn't sound bad if you like a really sweet drink.
Yeah, champagne.
This next one,
really bad headaches.
Next one sounds positively awful. What's that?
Headache inducing.
Yeah, probably. Sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist.
Oh, that's not a drink. That's a punishment. I have no idea what that's in. I don't know what movie that's from.
Groundhog Day.
Oh,
he orders it repeatedly in Groundhog Day.
The only thing
sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist. Awful.
I've seen that movie many times, but the only thing that sticks in my mind is when he bumps into that guy in the street. Ned Ryers. That's the only part I remember.
Yeah.
Clocks him. Okay.
Okay, so next one is Suntory, Suntory.
That's a whiskey, and that is from Lost in Translation.
Wow.
Oh.
Well done.
Suntory. Yeah.
Next one. This is kind of a little overly broad and maybe unfair, but Pinot Noir.
Well, that was my wine of choice when I was drinking, but I believe, isn't that what they're after in Sideways?
Wow. Yep.
Okay.
Because yes, Paul Giamatti's character is throughout Sideways, he's famous for loving Pinot Noir and hating Merlot, with equal levels of passion.
And you can remember that because the guy's bear schlong gets smashed up against the window like a fruit basket in the movie. Wait,
what? And I actually saw the little kind of very, very minor brush with fame. I saw Sideways in a theater, and Thomas Hayden Church was there to answer questions afterward.
Oh yeah,
and so I was like in the third or fourth row on one side, And we watched the movie, and then he walked up with whoever was going to be the whatever bullshit host of the Q&A session. I was there. I forget who I was there with, but on a date, we had to leave to go somewhere else, and we were like the only ones leaving for the Q&A. Everyone else was just spellbound by him, and we got to leave. And I was maybe 30 feet from him, and we got up to leave, and he's in the middle of answering a question, and in the middle of his answer stopped to say, "Hey, yeah, thanks guys, thanks so much for coming," in this nasty sarcastic voice, because he was pissed that we were leaving. Like, sorry, we've got to go, pardon me, sorry. So anyway, pissed him off. Next one's the obvious one, Chianti.
He went to school with a buddy of ours.
He did?
Little Billy Field. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Did not know that.
Wait, I'm sorry. Chianti, you saying Chianti?
Mm-hmm.
Lady and the Tramp.
Muppet Take Manhattan.
Oh, really? Really?
Okay. No.
I don't know.
Chianti? Silence of the Lamb?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, you threw me off because you didn't mention the fava beans or the nice Chianti. Okay. Sorry.
Chardonnay? Maybe again, Chardonnay. Over a little bit vaguely, or overly broad.
Wait a minute. Chardonnay. Smokey and the Bandit. No, I don't know.
Bridget Jones' Diary.
Oh, yeah. I think
There's several references to it. Next one is a movie I have not seen, so didn't know this one. Absinthe.
Absinthe,
which is the
absinthe makes the hearts grow fonder.
Makes the fart go Honda or something.
Absinthe shows up in a lot of stuff because it was illegal. Original absinthe is illegal in a lot of places. Right. But I can't think of a movie off the top of my head with it in it.
Apparently, it's featured in Moulin Rouge.
Oh, never seen it, but that makes sense because it's a French thing.
Yeah, and I've had the stuff, and it is disgusting. The Manhattan, again, maybe not a fair drink to name because I assume Manhattan's been in a jillion films, but
that was my go-to drink for the fall and winter. A good Manhattan, and I can't tell you.
Some like it hot.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Apparently featured in that film quite a bit. Just got a couple more here. One of my favorite drinks of choice, though I have not had one in, I'm sure, 15 or 20 years, the whiskey sour.
I knew you were going to say that. But I can't place it. You lost me.
Another Marilyn Monroe film, 7-Year Itch.
Oh, okay.
And this relies on bourbon, lemon juice, sugar syrup, and egg white. If I knew it had salmonella in it, I'm not sure I would have had quite so many whiskey sours.
Everyone will want one, monsieur.
So yeah, no thank you. The Singapore Sling.
Master Ninja 1 and 2 on Mystery Science Theater 3000. The Singapore Sling. That is the one that Tom Servo makes fun of Lee Van Cleef with in that.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So, yeah. What do you want to drink? I want a Singapore Sling. I can't tell you where it comes from though, or what it's.
Fear and Loathing.
Oh, no, they drink a lot in that movie. I've got one for you, Brian. I've got one for you.
Well, go ahead.
The Bull Shot.
Oh,
I believe it's the Bull Shot.
The Bull Shot.
Mm-hmm. I think it's what he orders. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Hey kid, can you make a bull shot?
I want to say that's it's a Wes Anderson, I think, but I'm drawing a blank. Tell me.
Hey kid, can you make a bull shot? Can you make a shoe smell? Hey, don't quit your day job. It's from Caddyshack.
Oh, okay.
It is. Roddy Dangerfield orders it. You want to know the ingredients in a bowl shot?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. How's your gag reflex doing, Brian?
That's fine.
Pretty good? Okay. Half a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce.
Okay.
Eighth of a teaspoon of celery salt. Ice cubes. Quarter cup of vodka. 3/4 of a cup of chilled, double rich, double strength canned beef broth. And a lime wedge.
Oh, God.
Mix Worcestershire and salt in a glass. Add ice cubes. Pour vodka, then broth. Garnish with lime wedge.
Ugh. Yeah, no, thank you.
I think it's a bull shot. It might be a bull shark, but I think it's a bull shot that he orders in that movie.
Yeah, that's positively disgusting. Yeah, no, thank you. That's like you know what they call a Bloody Mary in Australia?
What?
A bloody shame.
Well, we used to order what was that you used to order in college for someone's first drink? Brain damage. Right, it was the milk would curdle at the bottom of it and it would look like a brain, and then you throw a splash of grenadine in there.
It was 70, probably 70% alcohol, right?
Yeah, it was outrageous.
And last drink on the list I have for you, the sidecar.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were okay. Sidecar. I don't even know what's in a sidecar.
Sidecar is in Bonfire of the Vanities, cognac, lemon juice, and essentially any type of orange liqueur. So
triple sec or
so
Marnier
so high booze.
Bonfire of the Vanities.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was fun, Brian. Little trip down
loss
of memory lane.
Yeah. Right.
That's good.
That. and that reminds me why I am am such a incredibly conservative drinker now. It's like, oh yeah, these are funny to talk about, but I don't want any of them.
No, and since I quit drinking, the only thing that interests me is occasionally I'll get a little whiff of tequila and I'll be like, oh, that just still smells pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Yeah.
But the smell of gin, well, I never liked gin anyway. But,
yeah. Me neither.
But yeah, I was always a believer in you drink certain things. It was vodka martinis in the spring and summer, and then Manhattans in the fall and winter. And then you drink dark beers in the you drink your beer should change as the seasons change. There's no need to drink a stout or a porter in the middle of the summer. That's just that's gauche and it's bad for you.
That's a January beer. I mean, summertime beers are the light, the wheat beers and the
pilsners and the cherry wheats and the IPAs and those kind of things.
Right, and then the Guinnesses are for do the heavy lifting in January, right?
the heavy lifting. Well, folks, that is another episode of Dream Idiots, mercifully coming to a close. See y'all next week. Anything to add, Brian?
Thanks for listening, folks. Please do those things for us if you don't mind. Like and subscribe. And if you shoot us 5 stars, that'd be hugely appreciated. You can find us dreamidiots.com. Email us dreamidiots.podcast@gmail. And we appreciate all your feedback and for hanging in there with us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Be good to each other. Bye.